Yeah, yeah. Volleyball tournament for a long time. And then it's kind of excited. It's just from on my foot. And said, we're going to open it up once a week and make sure it's yours. Yeah. He's right there. I should have done everybody's just same thing. Yeah. Kids tell me it looks like a dish towel. Right? So at least you get it. So you're the best.
I just want to introduce myself. Yes. And I knew that was the case.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I put it down.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Barkley. Here. Banks.
Here.
Kimbrell. Here. Westerholz.
Here. And Sue Patterson is not here. She's in Washington, D.C., so she'll be excused for the night. Okay, if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, joy of walk, joy of death. You're no evil.
We could take a moment of silence, please.
The Lord is with me.
We, the people of Colorado, with proud reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe, in order to form a more independent and perfect government, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Colorado. Thank you. Take a seat.
Amen.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barkley. Aye. Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Westerholz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. We've got a fun thing to do here. I see there are a couple of students here. When I call your name, stand up. I'll be calling a lot of names. Regarding the Knowledge Bowl, the Woodland Park High School Knowledge Bowl team attended the state tournament and finished 8th in 3A. This is the toughest division that contains 3 of the top 4 teams in the entire state. They were given 520 trivia questions over 2 days, beating other teams to 150 of the questions. Very good. Please join me in congratulating the following 5 team members who attended. States: Zehan Rogers, I should have said ahead of time, hold your applause till I get through and we get a lot of names. Aiden Graham, Ali Orlano, She clap for you. Natalie Douglas and Claire Titus. Okay. Let's also congratulate the other team members who were not able to attend states, but still contributed to their team. So Julian Woodward, Stuart Gear, and Lillian Siegel. And a big thanks to their teacher, Jennifer Stone. Okay, next item, the Envirothon. A huge congratulations to our Woodland Park High School Envirothon team. Our incredible students swept the state competition, taking first, second, and third place. They are headed to the Nationals in Alberta, Canada this summer. Let's give a round of applause for Fahad, I'm going to butcher this, Fahad Al-Thawadi, Mason Oriano, Aiden Graham, Adeline Hughes, Evan Snyder, Eric Albu, Sonia Kettler, Brooke Gardner, Claire Titus, Caitlin Myers, Ollie Oriano, Mark Mesner, Emma Larson. Yeah. And Tegwin Toll. I hope I'm not butchering that too badly. A special shout out to teacher Jennifer Brocious and assistant coach Rose Banshoff. We want to thank you all. We're very proud of you. That's a major ordeal. You're smart young people. You're going to go places. Thank you for joining us. Okay, on to administrative reports. Do we have any Board of Education reports?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so first I just wanted to let the rest of the board know that I did make a post for our CFO opening on my own Facebook page with a link to the application site as well as on my LinkedIn page, and I've seen
Is your microphone on?
No. Oh, there we go.
Now we can hear
I
you.
need to talk into it, sorry. So I was just saying that I made a post for our CFO opening on my LinkedIn page as well as on my Facebook page, and it has been shared and liked, and so it's getting a lot of views. Hopefully that
Wonderful.
will lead to more qualified applicants. So,
Thank you. Yeah, like you've done this before.
yeah.
A little bit of it.
Yeah. The other thing, in regards to things I do a little bit, is with our superintendent search. So I know we had spoke at the last meeting and discussed having a work session so we can kind of work through all the steps and get through our process. Since to date we haven't had a meeting even scheduled, I went ahead and drafted a job description for superintendent search. So somewhere we can just kind of start from when we do get together for our work session. I did email it to all of you today. So, you know, there's some things in there that we still need to figure out, like what we want to set salary and stuff at, but I just thought I'd set up some qualifications. So it's, I tend to write long job descriptions, but I find more information is better. And so the qualifications, you know, just looking at like master's degree in education, you know, public school administrator license, 2 to 3 years experience as a teacher, 2 to 3 years experience as a principal, strong communication skills, deep understanding of school finance, and then, you know, demonstrated ability to lead and some other things. So we can add to those and kind of pick what we want, but
And you
least we have
copied
it.
everyone.
I did. Yep.
Thank you.
BCC'd, so
You
we
know,
can reply.
while we're on that note, we've had a lot of people's concerns about our lack of working on the superintendent's position. We are working on it. We talked about it a little bit in depth at our last agenda setting meeting. There are a couple of people that have interest in helping with the search. So we will have a work session to discuss that and discuss, if we want to have both of these people present to us. There are some open-ended questions. However, we are chugging along on that. There's a lot going on right now, but it's got its place in line, and we're moving on it. Thank you. Any others? Mr. Restro.
Yes. I had over the past week just some wonderful meetings with some teachers, some community people, and I was asking them questions about, specifically it came up talking about our retreat and things to talk about, and it's something that I've been talking about for some time, and I'm going to email this to everyone and finally have it all together. But some of the things, the challenges and strategic plans that I would, I think that since we really haven't talked a whole lot about it, is, I'm just going to read the top 4 things from talking to people within the district and teachers, is how do we go about this? Rebuilding trust, data-driven decision-making, ensuring financial stability, and addressing enrollment. And I thought, some of those things, and then there's a lot more here that we discussed, and it's just a wonderful outline here. It's easy to go through, and I thought it would really, I thought that the ideas that were presented were fabulous. So I think, I'm going to get this out to you. I just got the copy. Since I'm not a fast typer and organizer, someone else did it, whoever you sent it to me, so I have not sent it yet to everybody else.
Great, thank you. Keegan, you also had told me about some ideas. Is that still freshly available to forward over?
Yes, I sent it to everyone.
they're in our
I sent it
email.
in an email to everyone. I can send it again now to
Well,
bring it to the top.
recently you sent it again, or that's been some time ago?
I sent it maybe a month ago.
Would you send it
Maybe.
again, and then we have it in conjunction with his?
I got it.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Salt, you are up. Superintendent report.
All right, thank you. First, I wanted to address the CFO search. We have had a handful of candidates, a few of them that are not what I would consider qualified candidates, and a couple that are. So at this point, we only have 2 candidates that I would consider moving forward with. Courtney and I have not had a chance to schedule those yet. We'll be looking at interviews in the near future. I don't know if they'll be, options. We'll see how the interviews go. We did post both the CFO and the athletic director at the high school on CASE to try to get some more visibility from within the professional education sphere across the state. We've seen some good success with the AD listing. We've gotten a lot of traction. A handful of candidates that we're talking about whether or not we're going to interview, but again, CFO, we're still only at 2 candidates right now that have much experience from a CFO background sort of perspective. Speaking of board retreat, I know at the agenda setting, we talked about doing policy governance training in the morning. I was able to get a hold of Matt Cook, who is the he's certified in policy governance. He does trainings for CASB. And so although we are not CASB members, he's agreed to come down and do CASB member pricing for us. So it'll be relatively inexpensive to have him come down and do that training in the morning. So we'd be looking at a couple hours in the morning, and then that would leave time to work on any sort of strategic plan that you guys want to move on towards in the afternoon. Staffing update. I know there's a lot of questions and concerns about that. This has been a delayed process with the sales tax and everything else going on. I did meet with all of the principals today, and we went through what staffing models for next year would be, the number of FTE we're having to look at cutting due to current budget situations. And so they will start having conversations with personnel in the next couple of days so that we can start getting some concerns addressed and start making plans for next year. And then the last thing that I wanted to address is Gateway. I know there's been a lot of concern about what's going to happen with that building in the future. One of the options we're looking at right now is to, currently Gateway is being used as a testing center for both the middle school and the high school. That is going fairly well. We've got some technology and server pieces that we need, or switches that we need to replace. Stephen knows all too well about the issues we've been experiencing this week. So we do have a plan, or working on a plan to go forward, but it's going to cost about $10,000 to replace the switches and the networking pieces that we need in there. What our plan moving forward is currently, the working plan, is to leave it sort of a half building as testing center for high school, middle school, and then the other half to be more of a CTE center. We have several different CTE programs that we can run out of there. Now, part of the concern here is construction costs to retrofit that building into what we would need for a CTE center. And so we're still in the process of getting an idea of what that's actually going to cost us to be able to do. There are some grants out there that we're looking at that would help mitigate the cost. I do not have answers to those questions yet. This is still ongoing. But in that vein, I know that there's a lot of community discussion about this. And so Lindsay and I have talked about how to engage the community in this process moving forward. But I wanted to let you know that this is a conversation that we're starting to have internally. These ideas have come up kind of from the staff at the secondary camp for junior, senior high. So this has been sort of an organic conversation that's come up. And I think that we're getting to a place where we need to start having more earnest conversations about it. And so Lindsay and I will be working together towards what that engagement piece looks like and how we kind of move forward with that decision.
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So when you talk about trying to figure out what the actual cost would be towards doing those renovations or improvements, we're reaching out to multiple, have we reached out for bids yet, or we're just kind of trying
We're
to
not
do
quite
the finances?
there. The biggest concern that we have right now is moving the Pro Start, which is our culinary program, down there so they can use a commercial kitchen. That building is not currently sprinkled, and so we are working through code and what needs to be done, of whether we need the sprinkle. If we do we have to do the whole building, or can we stick to just the kitchen area?
Sprinklers in the-
Gateway doesn't have a fire, is that, you're talking about
Yeah.
fire sprinklers?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at other fire mitigation options there. They make hoods that have fire suppression. Part of it, they make other independent fire suppression pieces that would exist in the kitchen. And so we're just trying to get a grid for what's going to be required for code before we go out and start getting bids. And so we're not quite to the bidding process.
Sure.
We're still trying to understand what the scope of work we need bid out is.
If that's even an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a chance that the cost for this, and if we have to do the whole building, it's not going to be a feasible cost, and we'll have to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. But that's the current path.
So we're reaching out to like fire
There's some
departments
state
with it,
people
yeah.
that we're having to go through. Jason's handled that. He talked to one local person who didn't have all of the answers, and so it's a process.
Gotcha. Are there grants, and maybe you don't have the answer, but could we look into seeing if there are grants for fire mitigation things?
We can look.
Fire suppression
Most of the
things?
grants we've looked at we're not eligible for in the scope of what we're talking about.
Okay.
I haven't seen any that specifically for
Fire.
fire suppression. Most of what we've seen are CTE grants, but they won't fund capital construction outside of direct program costs. And since this is not a direct program cost, the grants that we're seeking right now or investigating don't actually go towards fixing that particular problem. Well, any other questions? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are now at public comments. Let me read this ahead of time. Please be aware that any personnel or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law, and it is out of respect of the law and our employees and students that we require those discussions to take place privately in executive session. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes or a total of 15 minutes for a particular topic. The intent of public comment is to give the Board of Education the opportunity to hear your comments. However, the board will make no decision or take no action on public comment during the meeting. Thank you. Candace?
Laura Gordon. How many do we have today?
Yeah, you have 16. Can you just let them all
How
speak?
many?
16.
Can you let they all speak?
Yeah.
That's one over the time limit. Can you let them all speak?
That seems
That's a real question.
But everybody might not use their 3 minutes.
Then that's what everyone's gonna speak.
Doesn't matter. You can do 48 minutes. Won't kill you.
We'll decide that, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can we all be polite tonight?
I agree.
No, I was just asking ahead of time, because then she doesn't have to do
I
that.
didn't think you were.
Well,
doing
we've extended it before, but I mean, this is a matter of one extra person. I'll bet you we can,
Squeeze me in.
approve of,
Thank
approve
you.
for that, yes.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Hi there.
Good evening. As a parent of 4 children in this school district and a tax-paying homeowner, I have some thoughts I'd like to share regarding the possible sale of 500 East Kelly Road. First of all, I want to believe that your motive behind even considering this is good, that you desire to be generous to a school that you feel responsibility over, and that you want them to be secure. However, I ask you to consider, if you are taking from those who don't have enough for their own needs, is it really generosity, or is it something else? And what about the financial security for our other schools that will be impacted by this decision? I know the argument is that Merritt would be taking a $3 million liability of deferred maintenance off of our hands. But what is the value of the building that is going with that liability? The original facility resolution acknowledged its value by listing the sale price as no less than $5 million. I implore you to understand how losing our second most valuable asset will affect the financial health of our primary government books. The auditors will be presenting our 23-24 audit later in this meeting, and a key thing to understand is that even though Merritt Academy is included in our district and in the audit, they are a completely separate unit with a different set of books. Our central district assets are not their assets, or vice versa. If 500 East Kelly Road were to be transferred to them for $1, we would lose millions of dollars in our assets, and our net position would take another loss. Proverbs 21:5 says, "Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty." I ask on behalf of my children's education and their classmates and their schoolmates that you not lead this district into poverty by making a hasty decision. Please make a good plan that benefits every single student in school, and do the hard work it will take to carry out that plan. There is a way to address Merritt's facility needs along with all of the other schools equally and fairly. It would involve having a work session, but this time, instead of just focusing on Merritt's facility needs and how to meet them, have a representative from all 4 of our schools, including Merritt, present all of the needs of each facility. Then list them in order of most urgent to least. The long-range facility master plan recommended budgeting 3% of the replacement value of our buildings towards maintenance and improvements. That is about $3 million a year. When you vote on next year's budget in May, make sure it budgets that amount for the facility needs of all of our schools, and then pursue revenue streams that will help cover it, such as a county sales tax or mill levy override. There is no need to sell off our district's second most valuable asset for $1. One more quick piece, never mind. I want to give time to other people. It's okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Carol Greenstreet.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us talk to you in this setting. I just want to tell you, number one, I don't take any pleasure in reading audits. I've already spoken to Tom. I didn't enjoy it when I was on the board. I don't enjoy it now. But I have read through it, and there are multiple problems. And I don't think it should come as a surprise to any of you. There have been many of us that have brought forward concerns about the budget, concerns about the way the budget has been done for the last 2 years. We've offered to meet with you. We've I've either not heard anything back, or I have complete confidence in our CFO and our superintendent. Or, so some of us went to the newspaper to try to help the community understand the issues in the budget. If you were surprised by the audit, you're the only ones that are to blame for it, because community members that care about this district have really tried to talk to you about it. I'd like you to stop the division in our community. I'd like you to take responsibility for where we are. I'd like you to stop saying that people just don't like us. There's a bunch of community members from lots of different backgrounds that care about the most important thing in our community, which is the schools that have been coming to you. I'd like you to stop saying it's people that don't like Merit Academy. There are parents that have been coming to you that care about their kids' education as much as the parents at Merit Academy care about their kids' education. Please just listen to the people that come to you in this room. I'd like you to remember that we don't actually know where we are in terms of budget yet. And I'd like you to consider that when you make decisions about salaries for Mr. Salt, anything that you're doing for Mr. Witt. And I'd like you to stop making big financial decisions until you've got everything straightened out. We know exactly how much money we have. We know if we have to pay any grants back. I'd like you all to start asking questions when things are presented to you. From what I've seen when budgets are presented, Keegan's the only one that's ever asked a question or questioned whether things were correct in the budget. I'd like you all to really, really work hard at your job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Kramer.
Good evening. My name is Dana Kramer. I'm a parent in the district. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of almost 600 concerned stakeholders who have signed a petition requesting a full forensic audit of the Woodland Park School District. The recently released 2024 WPSD audit revealed 83 concerning findings, including 11 material weaknesses, 4 significant deficiencies, and a federal compliance issue, affecting everything from internal controls to the handling of public funds. Most alarming are the findings tied to ESSER federal relief dollars. The audit documents that WPSD submitted incorrect reports, missed deadlines, and failed to comply with program requirements. This isn't a minor oversight. It's a breakdown in trust and transparency involving millions of taxpayer dollars. This community cannot settle for a partial or sectional audit. We are calling for a complete forensic audit that thoroughly addresses all 83 findings, identifies systemic failures, and helps restore public confidence. With 23 discrepancies the year prior, it would be wise to include that year as well in the forensic audit. A forensic audit would do what a standard financial review cannot: trace how funds are used, who made key decisions, and whether there was fraud, abuse, or mismanagement. 568 of your constituents have already spoken. Please listen to them. Let's do what's right for our students, our educators, and our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And submitting our
Signatures.
Yes.
Allison Avery W.
I apologize for my name. Thank you. Hello, my name is Allison Avery Baumhoff, and I am a parent in the district. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for putting the forensic audit proposal on the agenda. Of course, I wish we had never gotten to this point to begin with, but no one's perfect. Admitting fault and taking responsibility for one's actions and decisions and to then work to regain the public's trust is an important step in growing and with moving forward. After attending the work session on March 31st, I was impressed by Merritt's Board of Education and the care that they have for their students and staff. I wish my child had a board, save for one, that was looking out for him as much as Merritt's board is looking out for their students. Merritt's leadership saying that selling them the old middle school is the only way to move forward is a false claim. Their argument is that we can't afford to cover the $3 million in building repairs. Some of the line items provided were for things like new paint, new whiteboards, and resurfacing the track. Not exactly necessary improvements. A great way to make repairs equitable for all of our schools is to prioritize the most immediate necessary fixes. The report could then be created in a way where the necessary fixes are not listed by school building but are anonymous, which would rule out any claims for favoritism. This would help combat the narrative that one school is being prioritized above the others. It is not necessary for us to transfer ownership of our newest building to Merritt Academy. We can offer them a 5-year facility usage agreement. We can rewrite their contract so that more of their per pupil funding is allocated to their current building's maintenance. It is certainly not necessary for us to give them the building for $1, as Ms. Patterson and Ms. Kimbrell suggested at the work session. Merritt needs to take care of its population, but we need to take care of ours as well. If we surrender this facility, our own equity would decrease dramatically. Unless this move really is, as it appears to be, a facility grab by Merritt's leadership, a facility grab that you are complicit with. Just another example of you funneling resources away from our public ed students. Why not, instead of doing that, take care of the kids you are actually elected to take care of? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Joni Miller?
Johnny,
Oh, sorry.
I yield my time. I want everyone
Okay.
else to speak.
Kelly Hunsaker?
Hi, my name's Kelly Hunsaker. I'm a member of the community. I was tied to these schools for a very long time through one of your longest running teachers who left the district. I'm here to speak about the superintendent again, because I saw what you put on for your executive session. And it's important to remind you that when you hired Ken Witt, you paid him the most of any district of our size for part-time work. And when it was time to review him, you chose not to do so, despite being reminded this was good business practices. I believe if any of you owned your own business, you would never do that, because you would be spending your own money to pay someone who didn't get reviewed. I don't believe you would do that. If you did, that would be bad business practices as well. You also allowed him to run rampant in our district, talking down to people, treating people badly, parking in handicapped spots. The list went on very long, and you might remember I gave you some of it last time. So now you're going in there tonight to talk about both Mr. Salt's pay and what looks to be what you want to do to finish out Witt's contract. If he's owed something still under the contract, that's on you, because you didn't read that contract, despite the fact that Keegan argued you should, and that Mr. Rusterholt said, let's take a week and read it. You didn't read it because you raved about how great he was, what a great job he was doing, and I guess our audit proves you right. He was doing a great job at screwing everything up. He was giving you disrespect, and he was giving every member of this entire community disrespect, but you didn't review his contract. Now, if you go in there and you give him more money, that will be on you, and yet we will have to pay for it. And by the way, that contract was probably reviewed by our district attorney. And if that's true, then that district attorney was looking out for the superintendent and not the schools. His job is to work for the schools, not the superintendent. Your job is to work for the schools, for everyone here, for the students, for every taxpayer in this community that isn't here. That's your job. Not to help Mr. Witt get rich, not to help Mr. Carlson and Mr. Miller get rich. Your job is to take care of the students. They should be first. Community members, families, and staff should be first. If you go in there and you decide to give him more money, you should take it out of your own pocketbooks to pay him. Thank you.
Yes.
Lauren Michaels.
I'm Ron Michaels, a Teller County resident of 25 years. I'm one of the silent majority. I'm here again to encourage you to all continue to do the right thing. Yes, to continue to do the right thing. I learned in my 20 years in the U.S. Army that there are two ways of doing most things. There's doing things right, and there's doing the right thing. Thank you for doing the right thing. Please don't forget that you brought a second-rate school district with failing academics to being a first-rate school district with a distinction rating for composite performance scores. There are some in Woodland Park who would weaponize their children as pawns to advance their social agendas. These people should be ashamed. The young adults who today gleefully tear down statues of the founding fathers were incubated in our very own schools. Children just want to be children, not propagandized into being social justice warriors. They needn't and shouldn't be ideologue activists. They are here to learn how to think, not what to think, as they would mindly march to radical wokeness. As referenced in Proverbs 22:6, our job as adults is to train up a child according to his way, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Don't be discouraged. There are many of us that pray specifically for you, our school board, and the children of Teller County. I hope that you are also bending your own knees in prayer. Your success will depend on it. Our Father God works miracles even here in Woodland Park.
Thank you.
Logan Roos.
Thanks for letting us speak. I hope that everybody does get the opportunity to speak. I'll try to keep mine short just because I think that this is probably going to be a longer meeting. I'm sure that all of us want to get home. So I think the most pressing issue is obviously the audit. The findings, well, I won't speak to much of the audit because then I think that we'll hear from the professionals that will speak clearly about it, unlike me, which just kind of ramble on about things. It is problematic that you are taking the same course that you have taken in the past with moving forward in regards to finding a new, we'll call him CEO, because honestly, that's what he is, right? You guys, he's a CEO. He's not a superintendent. You guys want to make sure you boost up your CEO. That's clearly what it is. So I really urge you to take time to meet with individuals in the community and listen to their input, because there's a lot of it. There are so many individuals that have stopped reaching out because that they don't even think that you guys listen at all anymore. Because, I mean, your actions speak louder than, well, your lack of words. So I'll yield the rest of my time, but please do a better job.
Thank you.
Brian Myers. Brian Myers. Jesse Poole.
I'm Jessie Cole. I have 2 kids in the district. None of you knows me, and I live here, but I'm sure you know my name because I've already told you through legal action that I will not tolerate your impertinence when it comes to my rights or the rights and welfare of my children. The last board meeting was an exercise in apoplexy, certainly, but I cannot speak highly enough of Keegan Barkley, ever screaming into the bully as she's forced to say things like, I am once again asking you to follow the law, or I am committed to this community. Join me in that, won't you? And she was the only adult at the table suggesting a forensic audit and saying, who is responsible for this? Meanwhile, Mick hemmed and hawed and stammered and stuttered, but couldn't tell us who he had discussions with or who sent him an email. These are not hard questions. And then he repeatedly threatened to illegally clear the room if we could not maintain decorum. But Sue said the quiet part out loud and let us know what you think about the stakeholders of this district. This is your meeting and you don't care what we think. If you can't understand that you are beholden to this community, you will suffer the consequences of the rage of this community at the destruction you have wrought on something they used to love and no longer recognize. Everyone sees you dismantling public education so you can monetize a social institution, strip our children of the individuality you find so distasteful, and reduce them to units of profit. Let me disabuse you of the notion that any of us is willing to sacrifice our progeny at the altar of your interests. The kids here are so big and brilliant and beautiful, and we will not see them water themselves down or make themselves smaller so that you find them more palatable. With all due disrespect, I am confident the entirety of Woodland Park would sooner see you choke than cut our kids into pieces because you seek to consume them, but your hearts, minds, souls, and mouth are so small that you can't handle everything they are when they're whole. I don't know how any of you sleeps at night, how you wake up every morning and choose violence when it comes to your responsibilities to children. It terrifies me, and irrespective of the outcome, I will show you what it looks like when a terrified, pissed off mother stands up to the people who are harming her children when I face you in federal court. And the children I am raising understand that biological sex is complicated, and gender is a social construct that exists on a spectrum, and they are separate things. They get that there is nuance in the science, the biology, psychology, sociology, that refutes the insipid Rusterholzian penis-vagina false dichotomy perpetuated by every fringe conservative ideologue and torpid sycophant who is alarmingly obsessed with children's genitals. My kids are tired of being failed by weak men and complicit women over and over, and they want me to let you know that you don't get to tell them who and what they are. It isn't up to you. You don't get to decide, and you may not agree, but they are not asking for your permission. I have taught my children what they can expect from adults with a duty of care, and that when someone mistreats you, they lose access to you. So they are acutely aware that if you intend to retain the positions you have time and again proven yourselves unfit for, you have to do better. They are entitled to their childhoods and their educations and their identities and their futures. They know you owe it to them, and I will forever demand it on their behalf.
Thank you.
Jesse Seibert?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to put that on there to speak. I apologize.
Oh, looks like we have time for everybody.
Are you sure you don't want to just?
I am so sorry.
Here you go.
Aaron O'Connell?
We just saw her at the Supreme Court yesterday and it was awesome.
All right, would you believe I came in here with nothing to say? I'm Erin O'Connell, Woodland Park resident. I made a couple notes because it's interesting. Cassie, you shook your head when it was suggested that you recommended the sale to Merritt for $1 and said, I didn't do that. So who did? Are you blaming it all on Sue? Should we blame Sue for the dollar amount? I'm wondering if it didn't come from you, are you going to turn it and blame it on the person who's not here? Ruster Holtz, those 4 things you mentioned from the community, those are things we have been asking for years. I stood here 3 years ago and asked for those very same things, as did almost every one of these people. And we had those things until you all came in. And Erin, have you considered, when you're looking at what to do with Gateway, have you considered an elementary school? So that the students who are shoved into portables with leaky roofs and ineffective IT can actually have a school where they can safely and openly learn? Mick, you said you want to focus on the superintendent search, but you don't have the time because it's so busy. You do realize that all the problems that you are facing are ones that you have caused. If you would stop
jumping into decisions that are huge, costly, and detrimental to this district, you wouldn't have to be choosing between which fire to put out. So please consider that. I was at the Colorado Supreme Court yesterday, facing off against your district lawyers. None of you were there, but why would you be? You like to paint me as litigious. You like to paint me as someone having frivolous lawsuits. I don't even care if I'm talking about it, the decision hasn't been made yet. I am standing up here because the people that I'm fighting for matter to me, they matter to this community. Your lawyer painted me as someone who wanted to get money and just point out a mistake so that I could get attorney's fees. Do you think this is fun for me? You have damn near bankrupted me over the last 3 years because I am fighting for accountability to the students you are supposed to represent, and you do not represent them. So we do, and we will continue to. And you stifle our voices, and when you all first came in, this podium was faced this way. The camera could see us. We had 5 minutes. You let us in a bigger room. The second you saw dissent, you cut our time. You moved us back into a smaller room. You turned us away. They should see us. They should see us.
Hey. Oh, get off of me.
We matter. And I'm going to take the rest of my time to look at the people who are watching, who are not able to come here or who can't stomach it anymore because you discuss them, because you harm them day after day, decision after decision. We will keep fighting. I don't care how long it takes. We will not let you keep destroying our community without objection.
Amen.
Gail, Gary.
You go, girl.
Gail Garrett, 37-year resident of Woodland Park. I have 3 comments. First, I am pleased to see that it is being publicly acknowledged that the Merit Board and Ken Witt, Mick Bates, Cassie Kimbrough, and Suzanne Patterson were responsible for the loss of the school sales tax money. Without your resolution, it would be enforced today. 2, at the work session March 31st, it was interesting that Merit Board member Nicole Wagoner stated Merit is a, quote, faith-based school. Going on their website and reading their handbook, that is not mentioned. Faith, is that all faith? Being a faith-based school gives this charter school a special distinction. I think that should be included in their mission and their vision. 3 were my comments on considering separation monies with Ken Witt. Others have spoken about all of the problems, and it's difficult to know exactly about our finances under his tenure since there was never any transparency and adequate record keeping. But when I look at the monies that were spent on Ken Witt, and I'm going to add the attorney fees here, and probably both salary and over $100,000 in legal fees. Those are the things you need to consider. And when you're considering your budget and you talk about losing teachers or staff, how about losing an attorney that is way too expensive for this district?
Out of his league.
So please look at those details when you consider during your executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nate Williams.
Thank you. Hello to those watching at home. I forgot. Wait, give me 1 second. I apologize.
We need to increase our.
Before my time starts, I just want to play a quote from Andrew Womack.
We need to increase our scope. And we need to be far beyond just dealing with individuals. We need to be dealing with communities. And man, as many people as we have in this school here, we ought to take over Woodland Park.
Andrew Womack.
We need to increase our scope.
And you and you and you are on this board because of the Truth and Liberty Coalition. Only with their California lobbyists and their out-of-state money. Period. You want to pretend like you're the fox in the hen house, but you're the chickens with your heads cut off. You are losing every lawsuit that you faced. You've lost 3 already, and I was at the Supreme Court yesterday, and you're going to lose your suit against Aaron. And you're trying to sue the city, and they did everything properly. That's 2 more lawsuits. And, oh, I still have my name tag on from visiting the state attorney general today. You're going to get an injunction for your scam sale of the middle school building to Merit Academy. And you're going to pay Whit more money? Why did he retire early? We need to know that. We need to know that. You're pushing your agenda through as fast as possible because you and absent are going to be voted out in November, and you're going to be recalled. And the only person we're going to have left is the voice of democracy. It took, you wanted to sell Merit for $1, and then you said, oh, it's going to take $3.5 million to renovate. The land alone is worth $4 million. So what happens when the city just condemns the property and takes it away from you? Because they can do that. And this fiscal audit you have, your legal fees need to be itemized because you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on inadequate lawyers. Your lawyer yesterday at the state Supreme Court, Bryce Carlson, was a fool. He looked like an idiot in front of the court. Why are we wasting money on shit lawyers? Period. We're getting ready to be in a Trump session, and we're having all real estate has to be sold at a 5% discount in order to sell, because otherwise it sits on the market for 9 months. And your enrollment is dipping down, down, down. It's gone down every year since Ken Witt took his place. And you're about to lose more tax money than you could imagine. Not just your little sales tax, you're gonna lose property tax revenue. And I haven't even got halfway through my shit, but how can you sell a building that exists within the district to itself? Merit's in the district, how can you sell it to itself? The district controls Merit.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you so much, sweetie.
Chairman Langhart.
I've been a citizen of Woodland Park for 36 years, 33 years, 30 years, I don't care. Why, and I actually backed off. I felt there was no hope. Then something happened. I moved my best friend up here 2 weeks ago. And we found out she's going to have grandchildren come up here. And I went, oh. And she goes, well, what do you think? She said, you've been telling me about the astronaut. You've been telling me about the lawyer that argued at the Supreme Court. Isn't this amazing? And I said, well, yeah, kind of. I said, but our school board has nothing to do with that. This year, maybe we'll see some results. The results I'm saying is we had a forensic team of over 15 kids last year, and we have 6. I'm having a hard time. I don't agree with a lot what's going on. I hate the paranoia in this town, because the second thing that happened is, let's go have a cup of coffee. And I had 2 people in the back of my car, and they go, oh, can't go there, that's makeup. Oh, let's push it over here. What I would like to see, we can't go back all the errors have been made, is maybe, just once, coming together as a community. Stop the backstabbing. Stop the little tiny clips whether you're a Democrat, school board, Republican, or Greek. I don't care. The community that I worked with two of you on was a community that worked together, lived together, and appreciated good, solid business practices and integrity. Somehow, we aren't going to go back to our astronauts, our archaeologists, our lawyers, our engineers, but maybe we can figure out a way to go forward. And I didn't know what to tell her, but her friend that was in the back seat said, well, okay, they're working on it, they're working on it. So she called Columbine. And her kids will be homeschooled because of the size of the classrooms. And the other thing is if we let Merit take over the middle school, we have nowhere to grow. With that, building a new building up on the hill that somebody wants to buy already, we have nowhere to go. So think about it. And as far as Whit, don't rescind his resignation and make him, before you do anything, come back and show what he did. Because without him, there are a lot of things that'll never be answered.
Thank you,
for
Sharon.
your time.
Not even 3 days a week.
That's it. Okay, the young lady in the second row, you were willing to forego your time. Did you want to speak still?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amen.
A lot of what I was gonna say was already covered, and I really, really, really appreciate you coming in, talking about the superintendent, and you guys collaborating on that. I really appreciate that. That gives me a ton of hope. Thank you. I'm mom of 3, and I'm relieved to see Kenwood gone.
Amen.
But while I'm relieved, I'm also sad to see what the priorities of this board are.
Could you talk just a little louder, please? Thank you.
I really hope that you'll prioritize very soon fixing the electrical problems at Merritt. That was really scary to hear, and that shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be that kind of safety issue. So please, please get on that.
And it's been that way for years. It was like that when I was here.
Yep.
And with that, other safety issues at the other schools, could you please prioritize them next? That'd be awesome. But electrical issue, that's very frightening. I would like to start seeing money spent on our students and teachers. And I appreciate the movement on
Instead of lawyers.
getting a new superintendent. I really appreciate it. Thank you. It'd be great if they lived in Teller County and had all that experience that Ms. Barkley was talking about. So I just want to see our teachers being supported, our students, and I'd love to see that instead of this petty retaliation on city council. They were the one check and balance on this board, and they did the right thing.
Yeah.
You guys are responsible for losing that tax,
Yes.
not the city council. So please do the right thing. Please listen to parents. We're all begging you to put our kids first and the teachers and the staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why do we keep hiring lawyers that continue to lose every time?
Sir, you've had your time to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along here,
Moving along.
the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Pardon?
I apologize for interrupting, but I think my name's on the list.
Get up there, girl.
Well, I want to get approved. I want to get origin. My name is Lorraine.
We had 5 speakers that were under 2 minutes.
You know, why are you, I want to hear what you say, but why are you being rude?
I'm not being rude.
Sorry, Lorraine.
I just think that our superintendent, instead of merit school,
Come on
should
up.
be merit based.
Sir, you're taking away
Based on
something.
attendance and based on test scores. Period.
Sorry about that.
So I always think I'm funny. Nobody else thinks I'm funny about, how about those penguins? I'm gonna laugh. Anyway, thank you for your time in letting me speak tonight. Sometimes I forget that at the end, and I do appreciate the time. I want to bring up something that I don't want to use that word witness. I'm not an auditor. I'm just not. But I do want to question, when you folks are writing a contract for new people, I'm a photographer and I study the 4 seasons. And I will say Green Mountain Falls is the place, 10 minutes away. But this is what, when you first hired Ken Witt, I didn't really know who he was, but I know who doesn't love the pantry. I'll just say that, okay? And so I support them, but this man, and it was Ken Witt, I finally asked the help, is he an owner here? Because I saw him spending money, my money, all the time there. And I decided not to pull a core request because I saw it. I was down there every day to do my research on the geese and the photography. And that was interesting, okay? And then I never understood why all those meetings that he had to take place down there. I never understood why that. I finally got to the point that I said to myself, I cannot afford to pay my breakfast bill and his also through the district. So I quit going in there to spend money. But I still did my photography. And it really bothered me the days that I'd see that old white maintenance truck come down there, because you could hear it, and all the interviews that happened down there, and the business meetings that happened down there. Like I said, I love the pantry, but I don't understand why all that money was spent out of Teller County. There's so many restaurants up here, but that brings me to another point. Why do all these business meetings have to happen around breakfast, lunch, and dinner? How much money was spent, I'm not going to go into that, on dining out? And I'll just say Mr. Witt alone. We're striving for money here now. How much money was allowed in his contract to be spent on travel up to the school and to take the company vehicle on places out to eat? Thank you.
And violating the Open Records Act. On camera.
Okay, back to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Barclay. Aye. Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Rusterholz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, moving on, Staff Appreciation Week, and I lost my page.
Okay, we haven't been fired yet.
Okay, whereas the dedication and commitment of education staff are essential to the success of students and educational institutions, and whereas the tireless efforts of educators, support staff, administrators, and all those involved in the education process deserve recognition and appreciation for their invaluable contributions. And Whereas acknowledging the effort of staff creates a positive and supportive work environment, encouraging morale and promoting continued excellence in education. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the members of the Board of Education of Woodland Park School District, RE2, proclaim May 5th through 9th of 2025 as Staff Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Woodland Park School District RE2 encourages all stakeholders, including students, parents, and the community at large, to join in recognizing and appreciating the dedication and hard work of our staff during this special week. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the Staff Appreciation Week.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Barkley? Aye. Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell? Aye. Rusterholz?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So the only thing I have to add to that is I just hope that in addition to declaring a week, Staff Appreciation Week, that we can actually show our appreciation by one, making sure we can get our contracts out as soon as possible so that there's some security for our teachers. They know when they're working next year, and making sure that we hire, a superintendent and CFO who can ensure the success of the school district for them.
Thank you. Okay, next item under action is reschedule May's regular board meeting.
Can I ask a question? The noise that we're hearing is kind of canceling out what I'm able to hear,
Yeah.
but,
Is it that?
I mean,
It's this mic right here.
I'm the one with the hearing problem, but.
Yeah, yeah, it's this mic.
Okay, Candace, I muted
got
it.
it? Okay, thank you.
Interesting.
Do we have
It
a
is
microphone
totally-
that maybe would normally be for Sue, that we can switch it out, or is it just because it's too close to the speaker, we're getting
I think
feedback?
exactly, it's feedback. It's this mic. Oh.
Can we move the podium?
They just turn it off.
Okay.
Right, but we'll have people speaking
Yeah.
going forward, so anytime we turn it on, we're gonna get the moving.
Maybe.
I don't have a solution yet.
I'm not the IT guy.
We can try
Just
moving it.
if it's the feedback from
Sounds like a good idea.
We could move it up a little bit.
Can we
I
try?
can move it up.
We're gonna try anyway.
Even when you were speaking, it was better.
Yeah,
It
thank you.
was, that was on.
Let's try that.
Maybe we move it over there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Be very, very quiet.
It's working.
Okay.
Is it back on?
Yes, it's on. Due to scheduling conflicts, it is recommended that the May 14th, 2025 regular board meeting be rescheduled to May 7th of 2025. A motion is requested to approve rescheduling of the May 14th regular board meeting to May 7th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
I have a discussion.
Yeah, okay, so it's been seconded.
You
I
seconded it?
second.
Okay.
Uh,
Now we can discuss.
I can do it remotely, but I have to announce, I'm not really old enough for this, but my oldest grandson is getting married, and I'll be in Pennsylvania.
Will you be able to attend remotely?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks for the heads up.
Quorum.
Are you okay with that?
Has anyone spoken to Sue? Is she?
Well,
available?
she won't, she's only missing this meeting. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm asking if anyone spoke to her about the change in date to see if that, is it my microphone?
I don't know.
If Sue is available for that new date is what I was asking, since she's not here today to add anything to the discussion.
Pending a response from Sue, well, let me see.
Well, I mean, if David can still attend remotely, then we'll still have quorum, and it's not.
That's true, that's true.
yeah, I'll Even if we're driving or flying.
You have to be here. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Martin.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Spencer Holmes.
Aye.
I will follow up with Sue right away.
Only my ears got old. Oh, my hair did too.
It's so hard to watch you read like that.
Terrible. Okay, discussion information. First up is holding audit presentation. Holding, did I say holding?
Holding.
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 I'm Tom Sestair with Holding and Company. I'm the audit partner that oversaw your audit this year. I'd like to also introduce Chris Banta. He was the audit manager and was really on the ground part of the day-to-day auditing. So I may point you to him for some, for more specific questions. And I'll introduce Jessie too. She did not work on the audit at all. But she did for many, many years.
And signed up for public comment.
And also, I did send out a summary of my presentation tonight. I'm really going to focus on the first 4 items in number 1 here, because I think that's what people are most interested in. Not get too much into the numbers unless there's something we need to delve into a little bit. I'll touch on a couple, but just wanted to cover that ahead of time. First, of course, there was a number of audit challenges. I think by now you all know that. Really a lack of preparation for the on-site work. The field work was rescheduled from September to November due to Jack being hired. That makes sense. He was hired in September. You hadn't had somebody on board overseeing the financial department, at least at that level for a while, so that made sense. We did provide a comprehensive 65-item get-ready list. Very few of those items were ready for us when we were to start the audit. Multiple trial balances. So all your numbers were provided by Jack, and multiple times they didn't balance. So we went back and forth multiple times just trying to get the numbers that were there presented to us in a way that we could use. Few balance sheet and many significant income statement accounts few of these were reconciled at year end. Grants were also not balanced at year end. Significantly more work was required by us to reconcile grants and other accounts. As a result of this lack of preparation, field work was rescheduled to January. Then significant progress was made after Jack's departure and the contract CFO was brought in. Things really moved along at that point. Really the result of these challenges, of course, just a lack of accurate and timely information to the board and to the community and to grant and funding agencies. So internal control and compliance findings, we had a number of them. We had 16 in total. And I'm going to run down them and maybe further explain a couple of them. But a lack of appropriate closing procedures, that kind of covers everything in many ways, just not being prepared for the field work. Ineffective controls and documentation over P cards. And I think that's some of what people have asked about for a forensic audit, maybe delving into that sort of thing. Lack of travel policies, increasing the risk of fraud or abuse. Lack of effective controls over grant accounting. As I mentioned, a lot of the grants weren't balanced at year end. Bank reconciliations were not completed timely. Some for more than 6 months were not done. Obviously, a critical control over cash. Ineffective controls over reconciling pupil activities. Pupil activities were recorded at the school level during the year, but not uploaded into the district's general ledger, their accounting system, until the audit was happening and we were looking for that information. Ineffective controls over recording and reconciling BOCES activities. Lack of appropriate controls over component unit reporting. So that would be merit. And the merit activities were not reconciled until November of 2024. Lack of appropriate controls and review of journal entries. So a significant number of incorrect or unsupported journal entries were made that had to be researched and corrected during the audit. And a lot of additional audit time, of course, was spent doing exactly that. Lack of controls over required reporting through CDE. So in the end, the numbers were run, like we got to good numbers, but CDE did not get the correct numbers. So that's something that's fixable, and hopefully it's been fixed since. But good numbers can be provided to CDE because we got the good numbers at year end. Lack of controls over recording and reconciling salary accruals. Lack of controls over recording sales tax activity. Same thing with long-term debt, investment activity, and capital asset activity. Overall, many of these things fell under a lack of segregation of duties as well, where you really just have to have the appropriate people in place to do the work, oversee the work, and improve the work and reconcile the work. Let's see. Moving on to financial statement findings. So that was really internal controls. The financial statement findings is actually more or less the good news, if you will. And that is it. In spite of these findings, as of June 30th, the financial condition of the district was strong. The numbers turned out good at year end, for the most part. Now, there's some cause for concern looking ahead, and we saw I don't remember whether it was a 10 or 12% decrease in student count this year, but we didn't see that full impact of the revenue hit because it gets averaged over 5 years. So you may see the results of that coming down the road. But in the end, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion. Some recommendations. You've already hired a contract CFO and a third-party firm to help with monthly close. So that seems to be working so far until you have a permanent good situation there. Or a permanent situation that's a good stopgap and seems to be working. Management should consider whether the finance department is appropriately staffed. So we recommended that you consider hiring a grant accountant to oversee that function. Years ago, when Sheila used to work here, she used to just do everything. But having somebody with that expertise like she used to have over grants would be great. Management should ensure that all staff are properly trained in accounting in their specific jobs. Not everybody's going to know everything, as well as the accounting software. Management should continue monitoring the accounting and finance function. And then last, continue as a board. We met with the board, or I should say we met with a couple of representatives of the board. Thank you. A couple of representatives of the board during the year to make sure that at least a contingent of the board was aware of what was where things were at.
Interesting.
I mentioned that again, the numbers generally turning out well. If I'm looking at number 4 here, if you have my summary, the general fund, the ratio of unassigned fund balance to expenditures sits at 115 days, an improvement from 102 last year. That really is a good number. 90 to 120 days is maybe what you're shooting for. So if you're sitting at 115, that's a decent spot to be in. That's a good spot to be in. Internal controls, again, were a big focus of our audit. I talked about all of those already. Federal awards, also another big focus of our audit. And we had the one finding on reporting. Again, very fixable. But generally, the report, the compliance over federal awards was good, except for that. Okay. And I've mentioned this a couple times, but really all these findings are fixable. This is year one or year zero, whichever, of problems. Previous year, we had no findings. We have in years past, I think we had one, 3 or 4 years ago, and then a number, a dozen years ago. So, but with hopefully, with getting on top of these things, with the board, with management getting on top of these things, more confidence in the administration of the district's finances will be seen by the community of Woodland Park. So, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
the brief summary. I do have a couple questions. I was very glad to hear that these findings are fixable. And I'm going to ask some questions on behalf of the community as well. I've spoken to a lot of people who want to have a forensic audit of our school district. So I have 2 questions for you. Well, actually 3. First thing is, does your company do forensic audits?
We don't.
Okay, well then you're the perfect person to ask. So you don't have any, so to speak, dog in the fight.
Sure.
What would a forensic audit provide to the Board of Education?
I would say if you were doing it, you should be
accountability.
Come on.
You should be focused on specific areas of concern. So basically, you don't want to be, and they would guide you to that, right? But a forensic audit isn't going to be doing what we did, like a comprehensive audit, but at a much more detailed level. You want to drill down into specific areas of concern. Would that be P cards? Would that be travel? Would that be, certain things? And then when you can set a good scope, they can get you not only a reasonable price, but delve in deeply to those areas. And they will just outline the findings. They won't tell you whether it's right or wrong. You might say, we don't like it when we don't really want our people buying pizza out, right? So they would report all the times that people bought pizza out, for example. So they would report back the facts, and then you get to make the decisions on what's reasonable or not.
Does your company, would you be able to provide those kinds of areas of concern that you found that perhaps might be a possibility of focus to ask the forensic auditors?
Well, we did somewhat. I mean, I think within the findings,
I did see a bit of that, but
yeah.
And
we can certainly answer questions.
Can I jump in really quick?
Yeah.
So we actually submitted the audit done by Holting to the forensic audit firm. They looked at everything for us, and then they came back and said, hey, based off of the audit that you provided, these are the specific areas that we have concerns about that we want to dive deeper into. I was going to speak about this once we got to the forensic audit item on the agenda, but just as a heads up, a lot of it was around P-card usage. And so Corey and I, when we met with them, actually said, that's great. Can we also look at travel? I think there was one other that we had talked about, I don't remember what it was.
Legal fees.
And so we added a couple extra items that we wanted them to take a look into because we wanted to make sure that those areas were tightened up. But to your point, we submitted the audit provided by Holting. They looked through everything, and then they came back and said, based off of the audit, these are the areas that we believe would be most susceptible to fraud, and this is where we want to focus on.
Good.
So can I jump in?
Yeah,
on
sure,
that real
sure,
quick?
go ahead.
Okay, so speaking with Chris Banta previously, the P card issue, the travel policy, the training for teachers, and there was a grant in a fiscal year that possibly didn't get recorded. So have we started, and this might be a question for Courtney, have we started these logs and doing that going forward? Is this going back? The P card, travel logs, have those been corrected?
I don't know.
Okay, well, that's okay. That's what we need to work on, better logging, just making sure those are correct, because from my understanding from talking with you, that was one of the issues as far as the findings, is that correct?
What,
The P cards, as
Oh,
far
yes,
as like just not having logs, not, as far as.
Yeah, not having a clear paper trail for
Yeah.
approval and that sort of
I
thing.
think you guys had last minute trainings and they were fairly pricey, as far as like teacher trainings, do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I can, we have started talking about what that process is. We haven't implemented it yet because there were a lot of things to look at and start fixing. One of the things we've already addressed is the segmentation of duties that was brought by Holting, and making sure that there were good segmentation across the financial duties. To the grants role specifically, what we've done, Courtney and I reviewed, and we kind of reorganized the way that our front office was set up to ensure that segmentation of duties. One of the positions we currently have is not going to persist after June 30th, and we'll be bringing in a grant position at that point. So we have already accounted for that in our staffing for next year.
Okay, and so that person will be able to monitor all the.
Yeah, it's a grants and compliance piece, so it'll not only just handle grants, but it'll also handle a lot of the reporting that goes along with grants and with the CE
Because
reporting.
that was a grant issue, okay.
Sure.
Although you did answer quite a few of them. So
Good.
I appreciate when people anticipate those.
Yes,
things.
you bet.
So we were, since we're talking about grants right now, I guess, in the report, it mentions that there were findings that were required to be reported in accordance with 2 CFR 200.516A.
Specifically related to federal grants and those sort of findings.
So when you say it was required to be reported, what does that mean?
So they outlined very specific compliance issues that we're supposed to look at. So the one that we reported on was reporting. That's one element of compliance that they need to be, if there's specific requirements over reporting, they need to follow them, of course. They followed them by submitting a report, but the report wasn't correct. So just as a matter of course, it didn't comply.
Sure. And so, what, generally speaking, I'm sure you've seen other issues with people not maybe submitting grant information correctly or timely. In your experience, what are the repercussions of that?
Generally, redoing the report, because it's a federal compliance audit, but you're really held to these standards by the Colorado Department of Education. So you're really reporting to them, they're coming back to you. What they're gonna do is, if they haven't already, they're gonna say, give us the right numbers.
Right.
Get the reporting right so we can report back up to the federal government properly.
And then in your working in the district, do we have the documentation to properly report that, or is that what part of the?
I mean, it may take some work, but we got to the final numbers eventually, where we've got the right number for revenue, we've got the right total expenditures and the detail of that, so you should be able to pull that together. Or somebody.
Right.
I don't think they're giving you the job, are they?
Yeah, that would be beyond my scope of expertise. Although maybe, I don't know. So, and then, you went through some of the delays there. One of my questions was, what was the biggest challenge? It sounds like the biggest challenge was the district is not having their ducks in a row and not having information ready.
Yeah, much of the hardest thing was just not being able to get usable financial information. We could not get we get trial balances, so all the numbers for each of your funds. And we could, multiple attempts to get those in a way that they balance to zero. They should balance to zero at the end. Credits, debits, everything balances to zero. And we get a report, and within about 3 seconds, they'll say, oh, that doesn't add up to 0. So,
Yeah.
lots of those.
Was it more that, like, specific receipts, like, okay, went to lunch for this meeting, here's the receipt for that kind of thing? Or
No, it was just getting the numbers before we even got to the point of looking at invoices and receipts. It was just getting the numbers put together. And again, I think the numbers were there in many respects. They just couldn't generate appropriate reports. And it was mostly, I don't like to throw individuals under the bus, but you know, it's mostly coming from Jack, who's obviously not here anymore. And when, you know, after you got more help in, we got stuff pretty quickly. We got balanced trial balances and we're able to dive in and get the work.
Well, that is good to hear. I just wanted to ask, just for the public as well, to emphasize, are you saying that it was poor report, the reports were bad, the information was there, it was just reported incorrect?
That is what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay. One other question that I heard tonight several times, and I've heard a number of times.
Oh, and let me throw a caveat in though.
Please do, please do.
We did have to make quite a few adjustments to get there.
Okay.
All right, so it's not like it was perfect when they got to us. You know, I mean, I would think it's not unusual with a district or other larger organization. Maybe we'll see a dozen adjustments, reclassifications, or hey, looks like you missed this here. And I think we had 64 or 68 adjustments, something like that for the year. That's a big number. That's a big number. So there was a lot of
for a CFO to
grinding.
retire after 5 months.
Yes, thank you.
Sir, I'm not gonna we're not gonna talk about this again. The next time I'm gonna ask you to leave and I'll have security escort you out. Thank you. Go ahead.
So there was quite a lot of work to do to get to the final number. But the bulk of what was there was correct. The bulk of what was it, you know, individual things recorded as expenditures were generally right. They just maybe had to be reclassified or have an appropriate account number, you know, associated with them, or accounts receivable being considered and recorded appropriately. That sort of thing.
Good. And you answered my next question was, what kind of errors were there? And so you said maybe under the wrong account number or category. Is that what I hear you correctly?
Chris, you can speak to this a little bit more too, if you'd like to add in a little bit. If you like.
Time to tag in, I guess. Yeah, we had adjustments over almost every area. So revenue, expense.
Yeah, could you talk to the mic, and then I can hear it and everybody else can.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had adjustments over almost every area. So we adjusted revenue, expense, balance sheet items, receivables, payables, accruals. So I mean, and it was, the number was 83 journal entries. So yeah, this year, as compared to last year, which was 23. So I mean, the amount of work was substantial in comparison to the year prior.
And from your opinion, what was the breakdown? Why did this happen 1 year or 2 years ago? It's fine. I would like to hear your opinion if you're willing to give it. Yeah. Where was the breakdown?
That's a great question. Back at the end of FY23, the district experienced a major turnover in the financial services department, which ended up, essentially you had new staff that had no one to train them over how to do their job because there was no institutional knowledge, because there was no longtime staff to help out. And so due to that, you know, that's where we saw the breakdown. Really, fiscal year 24 was going to be the year that there was going to be issues regardless. Because of that, at the end of FY23 was when the final turnover happened, and they were able to help get those books closed. So FY23 ended up being, you know, relatively clean. We still had 23 entries in FY23, so still a good amount, but not the number we had this year. So due to that, and then in FY24 there was additional turnover. So there was some staff replacing staff that hadn't even been there a year. So there was, you know, lack of, you know, institutional knowledge, even from the period of time that they were being turned over from. That's really what caused it.
So you're saying that it was just people who, were they, I don't know if it's even fair to ask the question. So if it's not fair to ask the question, then, just say so. Are you saying that is a lack of insight or knowledge to the school district? Are you saying it's incompetence, or what are you saying?
So that's a great question. Let me, so in our first finding, 2024-001 year-end closing procedures, under the cause, we note that the district does not have the proper controls, process, or personnel in place to analyze, adjust, or independently review account balances prior to audit field work. And that based on the nature of the errors that we identified, it was determined that the Business Services Office does not have the personnel who have the appropriate skill, knowledge, or resources to ensure the financial statements are free from material error. And so, I mean, we laid it out pretty clearly.
It's a hiring issue. We're hiring people to fill seats, but maybe they don't have the skills necessary to be successful in those seats.
Yeah, we would
Without
recommend,
throwing specific people under the bus as a collective.
correct. We would like, to see a CFO be hired, as well as a grant accountant. Those were really the two areas that.
CFO and grant is your top one.
Correct.
Well, and I'll note too, I'll note also that the CFO role or finance director role, it's critical for the oversight. So, and I kind of touched on this before, but you can have staff slotted into their specific jobs and do their jobs well, but you got to have the CFO in place to bring it all together. And I think that was the biggest problem. Now, whichever CEO you got, whichever one was going to be hired, they were starting in September. The year had been over for 3 months or 2 months, right? So it was going to be a tough slog, not only to get on top of things, but, to get on top of things, to see what had been done before by the staff and to bring it all together into the right numbers. And that's why, of course, we initially delayed until November to do the field work and eventually to January.
So I hear you saying a big part of the problem was the timing of bringing any CFO that would have come in.
Yeah.
Would have had a very difficult, extremely difficult time.
Sure. But you still have to have somebody with that CFO have the right skills to be able to dive in and get it done.
Understood.
He didn't offer the assistance that you guys needed during the audit.
Right.
Or to his staff to make sure we were accounting for everything correctly. If I'm reading.
Yes, yeah, no, you can say that, that's fine.
So were there any, and you called out a couple of areas already that we should look into specifically, but were there any particular areas where it was even more difficult or you found, more obscurity in the accounting or the record keeping in particular? Or is it just kind of across the board?
Yeah, I'd say grants for sure. I mean, I was here for almost 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And that's largely what I was working on the entire time, was balancing, reconciling, and getting grants correct.
What is I'm just curious now, since that was a big part of an issue is the grants, what's the effect or the consequences of that kind of deficiency in reporting? Is there anything, or you got it all worked out? Do you understand my question?
I think maybe he's asking if there's any chance we're going to have to pay those grants back.
We have kind of a throwaway.
I didn't want to be that forward.
That's always a possibility. However, we also wouldn't give a clean opinion if we thought there were major areas of unanswered or incorrect, goodness, send me back this
numbers, not speed.
Incorrect, yes, incorrect amounts. So, I mean, that is somewhat the silver lining took more time, it took more expense, all that. But you did end up with a clean audit, and good numbers to go forward with. And, you know, we've had other audits. We have one this year. We had one a couple of years ago where it was so bad we couldn't even give an opinion.
But you're not talking about our school district.
But I'm not talking about your
I
school.
want to make that clear.
Yes.
Sorry, before I lose my train. You mentioned that it took extra time, right? Like we didn't have our stuff ready, it took extra time. I'm assuming that when we have quotes on what it's going to cost for these kinds of services, it's with a parameter of a specific amount of time. This took extra. I'm assuming there was additional costs incurred by the district because we didn't have our stuff ready.
There was, yes.
Yeah, can I ask how much it was?
In the end, it was more than double what the original fee was.
Oof. Oopsie.
Then my only other question, maybe not necessarily for the auditors, but obviously we've spoken about how personnel is an issue. I will admit I am concerned about our next hire for CFO. Erin, I know you weren't superintendent at that time, but do you know who was part of the interviewing team when we brought Jack in?
Ken did initial interviews with him. I sat in on a tiny one call with him, and then Jack and Ken finished out the negotiations.
Okay, so I guess, you know, part of, and again, I work in HR, so this is kind of where I come from, you know, making sure you're bringing in the right new talent is also making sure you have the right people interviewing, people who know what good looks like, so that we can make those, you know, discernments and make sure we're bringing in the right people. So if our whole finance department maybe is lacking, and again, I'm not gonna call anybody out specifically, do we have?
By the way, I want to say, we're not saying that.
Right.
All right, because there's right people in right roles, but not able to do all the accounting because that's not what their role is.
Right, so maybe we're spreading people too thin also.
Could be. I mean,
We're just slotted in the wrong
well,
spot.
where people were trying to do their job and really just stay on top of things with no CFO, that's really
lacking.
So, sir, are you, just for a follow-up on that same question?
Yes.
Are you saying that it was the oversight from the CFO that was lacking? It was not necessarily the people who were doing the jobs in each of the reporting?
Yeah, not necessarily. Like, now, that oversight may mean training in certain areas, but that's the bulk of it. You've got people that can do the job, or they can do the job with the right guidance and help from somebody that has that strength to do it.
And so that's
Don't
your-
clear out your accounting.
So that's what you're saying, is that they can do the job with the right oversight and guidance.
Yes.
They're doing a good job, they just need the oversight and guidance.
That's right.
And that guidance is provided by the CFO.
Right.
Got it.
It should be overseen by the superintendent.
Yes.
But also, back to what I was asking, do we have people we think can assess candidates and people who are going through the interview process to know if we're bringing in the right kind of CFO going forward?
Yes.
Okay.
We are confident. Courtney is doing an amazing job. I've talked to several people. Talked to several people who speak highly of her, not just here but in other places that know her, and so she has very strong technical skills when it comes to this piece, and so relying very heavily on her to understand what we need, especially because she's in a unique position where she does not currently work for the district. She does not own the problems that were inherited by her role at this point, and she has an inside perspective into what this district needs as far as seeing the personnel that are here and what how the audit was presented and kind of what we need to do moving forward. And so she has a lot of perspective that she can provide in looking for who that next person is.
Okay. So is Courtney doing most of the review of the resumes that come in, and will she do most of the interviews?
She will be involved in all of the interviews that we do. We do panel interviews, but relying very heavily on her technical expertise. I have sent her the applicants to review. I told her that, there's at least one applicant that has had 0 CFO experience.
Yeah, that's out.
And so, there's some easy cuts when I said that, the qualifications. The 2 people that we're looking at do have CFO experience. One of the individuals actually worked for a fractional CFO firm and hired people out. And so very strong with CFO experiences, but none of them have done education work. And so that's why there's some hesitation about whether we're finding the right person in this particular candidate group. She and I have not had a chance to speak about those candidates specifically. Well, we spoke briefly about a couple of them week and a half, 2 weeks ago. But as far as since I sent her all of the applicants, we haven't had a chance to connect. But again, I rely heavily on the technical experience of the people on, my teams to make sure we're making right decisions. And so relying on her, moving forward very heavily.
I think that all of us would agree here that I think that we would all agree, I'm sure we would, that because of what has happened in the past, I would like to see reports to the Board of Education in public, how we're doing, who are these candidates, why are they suggested, and I would like to see it be a report to us so that we can participate in that.
In their background.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here.
Okay.
Everything that's being discussed is true and accurate, but the pool of people that were available at that time was small. In fact, the guy that eventually was bypassed didn't have school background, and it's my understanding that's very important. So then Jack came along, and it was like, oh, we found the guy. Well, we never asked him to do some longhand math because, so my point is, we can have an emergency hire again. We see where it has already gotten us.
One thing I'd recommend, particularly if you're looking at somebody that has worked in, and ideally, that's what you're hoping for, somebody that has worked in school finance in Colorado, again, hopefully. Talk to folks at CDE, because they know everybody. A call to Glenn Gustafson. He could have given you the skinny on whether a hiring decision was a good way to go or not.
Yes.
And we did have I say we, I personally didn't, but discussions were had with Glenn regarding the issue, because he is handy.
No, Glenn. It's two different. It's
Different.
Oh, yes. This is from the CDE.
Gotcha, okay.
Glenn, Glenn.
Brian being the other person who used to handle our finances.
That's what I'm confusing me.
And Glenn, I think, was here helping bring the honor payment or something.
He did some assistance, not hardcore, but he was helping some.
In just pulling information, or?
I think more advice, wasn't it?
Guiding.
Yeah, after we came during interim work in June, we connected Glenn with the district to help out, get ready for the audit.
I have one last question. In your efforts, which got lengthy, was there anything in your work that would appear to be fraudulent or fraud?
Well, if we found actual fraud, we'd report it back to you. Okay, so we would have told you about that for sure. But we did have 16 findings. I think 2 of them were compliance findings. The rest were internal control findings. Any internal control finding certainly increases that risk of either fraud or error. So the risk is higher because of those findings.
But just to follow up on Mr. Bates' question, did you suspect fraud, or is that a fair question to ask you?
Sure. Oh, yeah, it's always a fair question to ask. I don't know about specifically. I mean, P cards are always difficult.
Just for the public, what is a P card?
A credit card.
Credit card.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a purchase
I want
card.
everybody who's watching on YouTube tonight to know it's a credit card. Okay.
Yes. So that's usually a great area of risk is P cards. So it's critical to have good controls where you have folks within the department, the specific department that somebody has a P card that are reviewing them, and that you're getting both the backup documentation as well as the approval by a supervisor, as well as somebody assigning where that should be posted to, what account that should be posted.
Since this is the biggest area of fraud, can you give some examples of deficiencies that were within that finding? Could you, Mr. Bates? This man is disrupting everything in the meeting.
I didn't disrupt anything. I just handed him a note.
I would like to ask that he's removed from the meeting, if I may, please.
I'll ask you to leave. I already told you once, sir.
I'm happy to go.
I mean, walking up to the podium, my goodness.
Why are you offended?
Sir, Tim, could you escort this gentleman out, please?
Absolutely.
My
He has to leave. If you
Without
think I'm being
comment,
rude,
without comment, please.
if I was really being rude, I'd tell you to fuck you and the horse you rode in on. But I'm not. And I just wanted him to ask about the $1 sale. I wanted to ask him about the $1 sale of Merit when they're 3.5 million in debt. Thank you for your time.
I apologize for that. Are there any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much.
Sorry, I'm a little shaky. I've got new knees here, so standing for a while.
Nice work.
We'll give you a break.
I was gonna start doing squats.
Well, you guys were thorough, and that's what we needed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, next item up, the board governance policy, EE6, by Mr. Salt.
All right, thank you. So, just a little context for this, for the folks not up here. Woodland Park has a policy governance model where there is a stack of board policies and then administrative policies. And it dictates how the board governs, it dictates our accountability structures between the board and the superintendent, et cetera. Part of that structure, thank you gentlemen, safe travels. Part of that structure is what's called executive expectations. And so the board talks about what's expected of what's expected of the superintendent, the administration, and to help bring guardrails kind of in on the superintendent. So what we're doing is there's a calendar. So we're going to start reviewing these policies at board meetings so that there's transparent accountability between the policies and adherence to policies. With that, the first policy that we're discussing today is EE6, which talks about community relations. And
Can I interject?
please.
Sorry, just to explain why we're covering this specific one today, there actually is a schedule that the board is supposed to be following, looking at each of these particular issues. There's one a month. That's part of our duties. We're supposed to be looking at them every month, so we're going to start doing that now.
And so the community relations.
Do you mind if we scoot this back? We can't see anything from back here past this. I'm
Thank
just gonna
you.
scoot it back.
It was moved.
Does that make it easier?
Thank you.
All right, so with this one being the community relations, I'll say I know that this district is not in compliance with the way that EE6 is written, and so we're not going to pretend like we were in compliance with it. I spoke with Ms. Barkley and Mr. Bates during the agenda setting. I said, this is the next one up. How do you want us to approach this? We can revise it, we can review it, we can go through. And so the proposal was to discuss how we're going to move into compliance for the next year. And so that's what we put together. That's what's in the board packet this evening. So a couple things that I wanted to kind of point out here. our stakeholder network meetings. We want to make sure that we're engaging the community. And so we put, this is a list. This is not comprehensive. This is kind of where we're going. To talk to business owners, realtors, SPED families, parents and students, religious leaders, other leaders across the city, and other key stakeholders. And so what we'll likely be doing is setting up each month, having a different group that cycles through. We'll talk about what it is that we're doing in the district and see how we can work with them as the district to make the community a better place. And so these are the initial key stakeholders that we're going to be working on. Because this is the end of the year, we will likely start this in August of next year and not immediately, but we're going to start cycling through those as well. The next one, promoting district culture, goodwill, respect, excellence, and community. Those 4 traits are actually called out in the board policy itself. So if you look at EE6, those 4 are called out in policy, and so that's why they're listed here. What we're doing is we're going to establish recognition programs highlighting staff, students, and community members who exemplify these cultural values. We're going to create standardized messaging guidelines ensuring all district communications consistently reflect and reinforce cultural priorities. And then we're going to start utilizing some different communication channels as well. We're going to continue to inform the community earlier and oftener through social media platforms, newsletters, the district website, email, and local media outlets. For this, it's a lot of what we've already been doing, but we're just going to do things on a better timing cycle before announcements. And then we're going to reestablish partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. I've already engaged with them and have a membership there. They have a breakfast next week that I am unable to attend, but we're going to continue to look for ways and events to attend. We're looking at Kiwanis and Rotary, I think, are the other 2 that we've looked into at this point. They meet at the same time, so it's going to be an alternating schedule, but working on getting those into the calendar as well. And then we want to engage in meaningful engagement with the local community through that process. The nice thing about the chamber is you have a lot of people from a lot of different industries. You have city council, you have businesses, you have a lot of individuals who are part of that. So it's easy to get to a disparate audience in a very, like, in 1 meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings. And so it's a great opportunity. I've been involved in chambers before and have great relationships and have established some really meaningful partnerships through those engagements. So I'm looking forward to doing that here as well. And then kind of future-looking things that we're still looking into. We're going to research and implement innovative approaches to two-way communication. We're going to develop new methods to collect and incorporate valuable input from all stakeholders and regularly evaluate effectiveness of the communication strategies we're employing and make adjustments as needed. These are things that Lindsay already has several ideas for, but we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, so we don't want to put anything here yet, but those are all focused and kind of ongoing research that we're doing to try to do some engagement through that process. Are there any questions?
I like to hear that we're doing that. I think that Lindsay has been doing an amazing job with things on social media, what she's been putting in the paper. You know, I think that's been great, and increasing that. You know, with you saying that you're going to be going to the meetings, that is wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, again, right, like with this effort, especially if we're not really getting it rolling until the start of next year, it's why, you know, one of the things I called out in the superintendent job description is someone that lives up here. Certainly much, much easier to be at this level of involvement and engagement when you're actually part of the community already.
Agreed. So I was going to add, part of that's more timing with just the end of the school year and how we're trying to close out right now. And that's really focused more on those community groups coming through. The other engagement's already happening. And one thing that wasn't on this list that I know I've spoken with Ms. Valaro about, and I've spoken with some of the other cabinet members, is doing sort of parent academies that'll help bring parents in, equip them. And one of the things we're actually talking about doing is doing one before the end of the school year so that we can do something primarily focused on literacy and reading so that we can launch parents into the summer equipped to handle the reading and, you know, what they can do to help their kids through literacy so that we can try to absorb a little bit of that summer dip. And so we're in a better place when we come back to school in August. And so these are some of that, forget it. But that's another thing that we're doing. And so we are actively engaging in this currently. It's just not going to be full all cylinders until probably August.
And
And
Ginger,
go ahead.
Ginger is involved with that as well, right?
Can't hear you.
She was asking if Ginger was involved in that, and I said yes.
And Mr. Saltz, one of the things that we had just started doing before Mr. Witt came, when Tina Cassens was the acting superintendent, and even before that, she was involved with starting and really growing a way that we could communicate with almost like surveys on getting community response and then being able to monitor it so that, you know, there was a way that it wasn't just overwhelmed by a certain bias, one way or the other. So is there anything like that in the plans?
Yeah, and that's one of the platforms that Lindsay's already looked at. It actually, I'm going to way misrepresent this, but I'll do the best that I can. We as a district can submit questions that provide for open-ended responses. So it's not just A, B, C, D. And then it allows community members not to reply to those. So it doesn't create interaction in the responses, but it does provide a system of rating those. So if you agreed with something that someone else said, you can go in and rate it higher so that we can see those suggestions at a higher level. And then there's analytics on the back that make it easy for reporting purposes. And so that's one of the surveying opportunities and tools that we're looking at. Again, we don't have anything specifically identified, which is why it's more in the still research and development portion of this report than it is in the actual implementation. There's several like that. We don't have anything identified directly, but those are the types of platforms that she's been investigating.
That's good. Because that's one of the things that I know I'm certain all of the board would like to hear is, and the school leadership is, what are the community's thoughts on it? And since you're working on a way to hear from parents and from teachers, if there was a way to other community members that we could hear from them, I think that would be valuable. The other thing is that I would like to hear as part of that is if a parent chooses to remove or change school districts or homeschool, I would like to hear those kind of surveys happening as well, even a personal phone call or something like that.
I believe we're already doing that at some level, but we don't get responses from everyone. Not everyone wants to fill those out.
Sure.
And so,
I don't think we're sending them out to everyone at this point, though. I know we've talked about it before, and there was pushback on not even wanting to try because we might not get responses from everyone, which, I mean, so you're never going to get responses from everybody, of course, but more responses is better than no responses.
I remember talking to Ms. Cassens about that, and she said it was, they tried to reach out number of ways to parents who were removing their students. And she said it was very difficult to get responses on that, and she was diligent at doing that.
And just to offer my services again to the board or whoever's running that, part of what I do in my job is engagement with the company. So I actually create and send out and analyze all of our surveys for the whole company. And then work on putting plans together to help improve areas of weakness. So if that is something I can help with, I would be more than happy to lend my knowledge there.
That's wonderful.
I appreciate that.
All right, then. If there's nothing else pressing, I'd like to move on. Anything else? All right. Next item up on the agenda. Thank you, Aaron. Next item on the agenda is the financial report from Ms. Crouch.
Is this going to be projected? Oh.
Already liked it. Oh.
Right there.
may actually have been my mic, so it might not be the podium at all. Every time I lean in. Yeah, I don't know. We're testing it out.
Is it gonna be projected?
Yes.
Yeah, 1 second. I have him rolling double duty.
I actually don't like standing behind a podium, so.
You can wander. Yeah, wander.
I love the Kincaid picture.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's like that.
I mean, I'm kind of over snow at this point, but it's a beautiful picture. That's better.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's it. All right. So what you're looking at is the start of what is going to become monthly reporting to the board.
Can I jump in really quick?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
So I see some of you taking pictures. The board packet is available online where you can actually pull it down and look at it. So it might be. Okay. Yeah. So it's next to the link for the meeting. If you go to like where the meetings are listed, it has the link. There should be another link next to it that says board packet. Packet, something along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Look at this, getting interactive.
All right. So, and I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of what I do is educating, and that's probably one of the best parts of my job is getting to explain how these very complicated financials are put together, starting with the very basic things like what you buy and what you make. What we're looking at right here is kind of how we start, profit and loss. What did we make? What have we spent? What do we have left over at the end of the month or at the end of the reporting period? What you're seeing right here is year to date, so July through the end of March. What you're also seeing here is the revised budget. Now, you might look at this and go, wait a second, we have tons and tons and tons of accounts. What this is a roll-up. This is your 0-100 accounts, all of your salaries, your 0-200 accounts, all of your benefits, and so on through all of the 0-900 accounts. All rolled up so that you can look at this and go, yes, we have good net income, and yes, we are tracking with the budget. One of the nice things about a P&L compared to the budget is we can say, okay, we're 75% of the way through the year. What accounting lines on the revenue side and the expenditure side are not tracking? And generally, I look within 5%. So what this will then generate is a budget variance report. I will then go in as your CFO will then go in and say, why are supplies at 90% when we're only 75 or let's say 50% of the way through the year? Then that individual can go in and look line by line by line. That is what they should be doing. These are the kinds of questions we'll be asking. And determine, oh, you know what? We had an unexpected expenditure at the beginning of the year. We'll revise that in the revision, the revised budget, so that we can account for that. And we then have a better idea going forward what we need to spend, and then we track in line with our budget a little bit better. Maybe there was a capital outlay that you weren't anticipating that will drive property up, that 0-700 account line. That's something that can be spoken to, like, hey, we weren't expecting this. Capital outlay is always immediate. It's not something you can generally normalize over time. You've got to recognize that expense right away. And so then your property line may just track hot throughout the rest of the year or high. And you have to recognize that there are those accounts where that might happen. And then you've got to make a decision as an administration, as a board, okay, that's fine. We're still okay. We're still under appropriation. We can project that out with our cash flow, which is the next thing that
we move into once we get this P&L set really well. The cash flow is, I would offer that to use my cash flow model. It's something that I actually put together every month. I don't generate it out of the financial accounting program. Because there are metrics that I tie into the cash flow that I track that aren't necessarily tracked in the financial accounting software unless you have a way to design it. But if you're wanting to track projected year-end days cash on hand, which the auditor referred to as unassigned fund balance as a function of expenditures, your days cash on hand is how many days can we survive without any additional revenue. And so your cash flow will help you calculate that like that immediately. And so then that is something that you would look at as a board and go, okay, yeah, we may have had this capital outlay. We weren't expecting it. It looks like our property line is a little bit higher, but this is when the analytics come in from your CFO. We are still going to come in under appropriations, which is what CDE wants to see you do. And then if there are other metrics that you're tracking, days cash on hand, debt service coverage ratio, those are still okay. So even though we had an unexpected expense, we can still make sure that we're at the end of the year going to be okay. We're going to be able to demonstrate why we had to do that during the audit and then go from there. So this is a start. We are fully in the process of transitioning to Skyward. So it's a little wonky, what I call inelegant right now, just simply because I don't yet have the ability to go in and create these reports. Once all of the information has been transferred, then I can go in, create the reports that will begin generating on a monthly basis. And this is your CFO. You've got one person who books or records all of the expenses. That's their job. Then you've got someone else who goes in and reconciles the bank accounts. That's their job. And then at the end of the day, the CFO pulls these reports. First of all, make sure all the bank reconciliations are done, pulls the reports, and then says, are we good? Am I missing anything? And that's what gets reported to the board on a monthly basis. So I will continue to generate new reports that I will present to you. If you like them, let me know. If there are things that you want to be different, let me know. If you've seen other types of financial statements that you would like to see, let me know. So, and we'll collaborate, we'll work on it, because ultimately, these are your products, and these are the things that will help you make the most informed financial decisions. One thing that I would like to say to all of you here, there was a lot of talk about personnel issues having been part of the reason for all of the findings in the audit. When I came in, what I found back of house, so what you guys don't necessarily see in your accountant and your ARAP and your HR folks, was incredible diligence and hard work to get the audit done.
That's good to hear. Thank you for saying
So
it.
I think it's really important that is said.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Any questions before I run away?
If we take your car away, will you stay here?
Have
Can
you
you
applied
drive
for the
stick?
job yet?
We appreciate we appreciate it, Courtney. You've been a big difference.
So, wow, really.
So
We'll
I
keep on
do
plugging.
have some questions, and I love this report, so I'm just gonna say that to start. Makes it much easier to see things. I know I reached out to you about having maybe a report on like a more of the month to month, right? Like this gives us year to date, but more like a month to month. So knowing, okay, this month we had to spend this much. Is that different from what we would normally spend every month? And I know you're working on getting those reports. I just wanted to call it out. You know, like what are our
do-
average spends?
So one of the reports that I pull in order to generate my cash flow is a P&L by month. And that will show you that monthly breakdown. I prefer to show it rolled up just like this. And then if there are concerns about a certain thing that you notice, you can call it out directly and I can investigate it a little bit further. But yeah, P&L by month, it's a report I generate anyway. So that can.
Yeah,
that can
maybe it's
easily
something
be
that's in the
included.
packet that, assuming there are no issues, we don't have to dive into every month, but, you know, just.
And generally, if there are big discrepancies, like that percentage is way high or way low, I'm gonna call it out anyway in a variance report. And then if you've got additional concerns or questions, you can ask about it.
Okay, awesome. And then the only other question I had, and I maybe apologize for not knowing this, but in, you know, the 0, 100 to 0, 900, what bucket does like our lawyers' fees come out of?
They're in your 0-300 purchase technical services, purchase professional and technical services, consultants, contractors, those types. So anybody who provides a skill that isn't in-house to the district.
Okay.
If you had legal counsel, they would actually be salaried, but because you have to consult with them, they go in that 0-300 bucket.
You know, I do have a question to follow up on that. We've had so many people from the public asking and about our itemization for legal fees. You know, we've had just a lot of things come into play in regard to that. Is that something that is possible to line item out? Would that be a good thing to do? I'm just, you know, we want to be more open about all of our recording. I just want to know, is that something that could be done?
Well, yes. I don't know if you would necessarily want to line item it, but you could certainly call it out. You could say, okay, well, we've spent to date $706,000 in that 0-300 accounting line. Of that, 50,000, 60,000, whatever is legal.
Right. And the other thing, part of that is, I've been asked, how much do we spend on Cora requests? How does that, I mean, I've been asked that a lot in the past couple of years. What's our cost on that? And it would be nice to answer that question. I've asked a number of times, and I mean, not you. So let me just stipulate that. But I have been asked many times, what is our cost on Cora requests? Is that something that can be line itemed out, or?
Well, yeah, it can, because there's an invoice associated with it. If there's an invoice generated, there's a corresponding revenue associated with it or cost associated with it. And generally with Cora requests, you're talking about time. And so those who are responsible for responding to Cora requests could track the time that they spend. They have an hourly rate, and you can figure that out from there. Not necessarily something that would be in the accounting system unless it's related to revenue that's being collected with respect to Cora requests, because you can do that. You can ask to approve printing costs and some amount of time. That's really the only thing that's probably going to end up booked in the financial accounting system, but there are ways to track it.
I had a system that literally came down to every cent that you guys didn't want it.
Okay, any other questions?
Separate question. Yep. When we're looking at invoices coming in, obviously they get recorded and wind up on our expense report, but where in our system, like what is our process for approving those invoices that come in and then paying them?
All right, so I'm going to back up a step. The invoice is the result of a purchase that has been made that should already have been approved. So the first step is I need a book. So I request the purchase of a book from my supervisor or whoever has the authority to approve that request. Step number one. Step number two, then there's somebody in the system, whether it's at the school or at the district, who's authorized to make the purchase. Is it in the form of a PO, or is it in the form of someone picking up the phone and making a phone call and paying with a credit card? That depends on what the purchase is and what the requirements are. Generally, an invoice is going to be generated as the result of a PO. So there's one person who generates the PO. Then that person gets the inventory, makes sure that it's all correct, reviews the invoice to the PO, and then tells the accounts receivable, accounts payable clerk or specialist, this invoice is good to pay. She then, or he then goes in, generates the expenditure by creating a check in the financial accounting system. And right now there's a process in place to hold that. She then prints off a report of all of the things that are going to be paid. The CFO or the interim superintendent have the authority to review that, sign off on it, and then the check is issued and dispersed. That is kind of how that process
So there
walks
should be a really good paper trail.
There
for
should
all of
be
the
a
things
really
we're
good paper
spending.
trail, starting with the I need a book.
And we have that in place. That you
We are
described.
getting it in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's good to hear.
So here's a follow-up question.
I'm sad to hear that it has not been in place, but I'm glad you're doing it.
Well, there may have been a system in place.
There was.
I don't see evidence that it had been implemented during the fiscal year of the audit, at least through that point. And part of that is the current staff, and there were a lot of questions asked about they didn't have the right skill set or they weren't, doing kind of the right thing. They had very specific skill sets that bled into other things that had to be done out of necessity because no one else was there to do it. And so you had folks who, I'm an accountant and that is what I do, but they ended up doing other things too in order to get the job done. So
that's good to hear. I'm glad that you said that.
And so when Tom talks about lack of separation of duties, it sort of happens out of necessity.
That's what I was.
Does that answer your invoice question? Sorry.
Yes. I mean, it's also, if we didn't have the system in place, is it possible to find, from what you found, like, are some of those things in there, but maybe
Yes.
not from
Yeah.
A to Z,
Right.
but maybe we have A, B,
It's more like A and Z, we're here. It's not so much that the paper trail isn't there. It is there. We just are going to design a more effective, better internal control mechanism to make sure that we can track the system. So that we can, when the auditor says, hey, I need to see receipt this for a book that was purchased, we can go, here's the approval, here's the receipt, here's where it was booked, here's the invoice, here's the proof of payment.
Right.
In your opinion, does Skyward help with that more?
Yeah, and that's what I was
Yes.
going to say is
Yes.
the ERP system that we're moving to actually will not automate, but it'll provide notifications to the appropriate authorized signers. And so the entire paper trail will be in that system. And so it makes the auditing process a lot cleaner and easier because I can't have a PO and then go take it to Keegan to sign because she's not the authorized signer for it. I'd have to go to Courtney because she's my supervisor. And so all of that's being built out into into the Skyward system to make sure that we have better controls. And I was going to say that you hit it with, the segregation of duties was really not there. And that's where one of the biggest issues is you had the same people doing two jobs. And so we didn't have the proper financial controls from that. All of that is part of what we've resolved with the new position descriptions and how staff is being kind of laid out, and then having the new ERP in place. And so we're working diligently to make sure all of this is there. Now, this is software that helps with process. This is not policy. And so the policy piece is still being developed that will make sure that the process, like outline what the processes are. So there's different pieces of this that the whole thing has to be built. And we're just building it kind of as we go, because the ERP we have to get up and running, and we'll make sure that the process is in place, and then we'll make sure that the policies are there to support the processes that we have in order to make sure the whole bundle matches what we need from a controls perspective.
Yeah, and then the jobs that have been identified and the corresponding job descriptions came as the result of a thorough review of the audit findings and corresponding remedial actions in order to address each finding. And so as I went through each finding, identified the evidence, and that was generally provided by the auditors, and then looking at how do we fix it? 1, 2, 3, 4, and a lot of that had to do with we need a such and such to do this, and we need a such and such to do that. And so the job descriptions coming from that internal controls corrective actions sort of workflow, if you will, moving into what is your board financial policy? That should be about 15 to 18 pages. And then that next step is what are the financial procedures to support that? That's your very lengthy, very detailed process document where you will hear about how you handle travel and how you handle P cards and who gets to authorize what.
So, and again, this won't necessarily be a question for you, but the school obviously had policies and procedures in place many, many years. So my question is, what happened to those policies? Because even if you have personnel changes, if you have the documentation, like you shouldn't have to have someone standing over you telling you you have to do this. Now, I guess I understand that when you're spread super thin and you're trying to put out all the fires, things fall through the cracks, right? Like that's what happens when you have huge staff turnover, which is why it's so important not to have staff turnover. But what happened to of the policies that were in place?
I would say they still exist. Whether they, at this point, they probably need to go through a revision process through governance.
Yeah.
Actually,
definitely.
Through governance/finance. Those are your two primary parties that need to be involved in that conversation. Yeah. And then, full readings.
Right.
In public. And then, the procedural document, I don't know.
Right.
So if I can jump in, so we have policy that dictates financial processes. I won't get too far into the weeds with the policy, but the way that there's a CASB model that most districts follow that outline what policies cover what things. And part of that are the -Rs, which are the regulations, I think is what the R stands for, but it's really the process and the protocol portion of it. And what I found is we don't have a robust -R like book. And so it's sort of like half the puzzle is there with the process or with the policy, but not the regulation and the protocol that you're supposed to follow. I don't know, I can't speak for before I got here, but that's what I have found since. Many of the policies have not been reviewed in a while, and I'll say like I've seen policies that the last time they were updated was back in like the 90s. And I'm really glad to hear, I know everyone out here knows nothing in the world has changed since like 93 that would have any implication on policy. So those are one of the things that we've already talked about is having some of a regular review of these policies. And the financial one being one of the most pertinent and imminent to be reviewed. And so that's kind of where we're at. To answer your question of where did they go, that's where we're at.
And the policies, that is what provides you with how you do financial oversight. The procedures, that's an operational or administrative document that is owned by the administration, if you will. I like to separate them out. Everybody talks about financial policies and procedures. Well, I like financial policies and then an appended procedural document kind of thing. And because the procedural document can be a lot more nimble and flexible because it's owned by the administration and the support staff. And when they see that there might be something wrong or something that could be done better, they can make those adjustments without having to go through a board review process. So.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. Very well explained. Thank you.
You sure you don't want to apply for the CFO job?
My children would disown me.
Thank you. Did what? We haven't had it for a bit. Let's see. The next item, item D, is the forensic audit proposal, Mr. Salt.
Thank you. I've already kind of talked briefly about this and kind of alluded to it. We actually reached out to Holting and asked if they did forensic audits. They told us no, but they've had several clients who've used this firm, Bailey. And so we reached out to them. We sent them our full audit. They reviewed it kind of over spring break, and then they got back to us last week and said, we need to have a scoping call. We found some areas that we'd like to investigate further. And so this is the result. So we met with them, we talked through it. As I said, specifically, their biggest concerns were around the P cards. And we've asked them to look, I think it was the ESSER funds that we talked about. Yep. So it was ESSER and travel that we asked them to also include in the scope of the forensic audit to make sure that they could cover everything. We did ask them to do remote as much as possible. They offered that for us because the person who would be coming here is in California. And so trying to save a few dollars on travel expenses and whatnot, which you'll see accounted for here. We're going to do as much as we can remote and scanning stuff and sending to them. I don't know how much they'll be actually on site, but we're working through that. They've been around for a long time. They handle forensic audits, and they're actually a national company that not many people have heard of because all of it's by word of mouth. It's kind of like how we came across them. They've got a very strong reputation in the forensic audit community. And so this is kind of their proposal. They asked us when it was going to be, when they needed it. They said they could get it to us like yesterday, and I said, hey, cool, the board packet goes out on Friday. If you can get it to us by then, and they got it to us by close of business. So they're easy to work with as far as the sales process, but most companies are at that point. But the proposal that you see here is kind of up for discussion. We have made no agreements with them, haven't seen an agreement. I told them the board was going to discuss it this evening, and then I would get back to him tomorrow. So based off of the conversation tonight, I just wanted to make sure this board had the information. I know this is something that's come up from the community. I know there's also been a desire from this board to see this. If you look at page 8.
That was the call.
Oh, 8 is the call. I was going to say 7. You can actually see what the scope covers. There's the 3 bullet points there that they wanted to look into. And they're expecting this to take between 4 and 5 months to actually complete the audit. So we won't have information soon, but they can start working on it pretty quick. It'll be pretty quick. I think they said they could start in May, maybe early June, from a timing perspective. So we'll end up with results or findings kind of late fall or early fall, late spring, or late summer. I'll get my months right. On page 8, you can actually see the breakout of fees. This is a not to exceed $35,000. The way this works is it's very much like attorney fees where you pay into a trust. They draw on it as they incur expenses. And then if they notice that, hey, I know we said we're not going to exceed $35,000, but it's looking like we're having to spend some more time in some areas or whatever, they'll come back to us. Otherwise, if there's any savings, they will return that to us. So the not to exceed would be potentially less. I just assume they'll eat the whole thing. but we would owe that on the front to a trust. They would draw on the trusts as they progress. If you look at the out-of-pocket expenses towards the bottom, it says inclusive, and that's from where the travel expenses, because we're going to be doing as much of this remotely. This is where a lot of those other expenses would be incurred, that, you know, what the travel rates and stuff would be, but it's included in that $35,000 draw. Those are the big things that I wanted to call out. I'll let you guys discuss. I'm happy to answer questions that I can, but really looking for guidance from you guys on if this is like how we want to proceed from here. This is the only firm that we've reached out to, just because this is who we got from Holting, and just wanted to get kind of a ballpark. We can do additional looking. I don't know what other firms we look into, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But again, looking for guidance.
Mr. Stoll, I do have a question, just kind of overall for the public that's listening. Is this information that you've given us available, printed, posted on our website? Where can people come and look at this?
It's in the board packet.
Okay, so everybody can go to the website and see in the board packet this information.
Yes, sir.
Do
Okay,
we
thank
have
you.
a budget amount that we're willing to spend for this?
That's I want to spend as little as possible, but this is an important expense to make. We don't have anything budgeted for forensic audit, so we would have to pull this from somewhere. 35,000 more than what we want, but we can find the money to do this.
I mean, since we haven't had any other quotes before, should we be looking into other quotes? We have sort of like a
I think we
ballpark.
have to, don't we? I
Yeah,
think
we
we have to have 2 or 3 if we're spending over,
25, I think.
yeah. So since this quote came in over 25, I think we have to have 2 or 3.
As a professional service, you can get one,
Okay.
but we often get multiples, and that's why I'm saying, like, we can do this. It's not outrageous. This is kind of where I thought we would be. So.
Yeah, knowing our audit prices, this
Yeah,
probably isn't outrageous.
so this
I
is-
would want to see other.
Boy, where do we get
Happy to do
another,
others.
where do we get another recommendation that, I'm sure there's good and.
I could go back to Holting and just see if they have other ones, and I mean, this is the only name that he provided me, but they might have other recommendations.
I wonder if CASB or CDE would have any recommendations.
So the state will tell you, yes, that CDE should have recommendations
Yeah.
for the audits. I already asked.
Yeah.
I talked to them.
But I also work with other financial accounting professionals and they may have some other recommendations too. So at
That'd
least you
be-
got
that'd be
maybe
handy.
2 more.
Yeah, I think two additional would be good. The other thing, what did I do with my questions? Too many papers. So talking about where the funds could come from, I've seen this tossed around a lot on social media, and some people have emailed me asking about it. Is there the potential for our liability insurance or insurance at all to cover the costs?
That was my next question. I have received an email about that as well, so.
I can ask. I don't believe it does, but I can ask and see. And most of our deductibles would be in the 25 range. So even if it covered, we'd still be out 25-ish. I mean, it's not 35, but I don't know that it would be, but I can reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
worth a shot to ask so we can save some money.
The other thing I think might be worth adding to the scope, and again, this is more to put minds at ease than my own fears of issues, but adding into the money flow between the charter and the district to make sure we can definitively say this is all being done correctly.
I didn't quite follow what you said.
So as part of the scope right now, excuse me, we have looking at the cards, right, the credit cards, PQs, as well as the ESSER grant, and then what was the other one?
Is it 24?
Travel, thank you. So adding to that, to have someone do a deep dive into the pass-through finances between the district and Merit to make sure that we can say that all of that is clean and
Now I
clear.
understand. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what that would do to the cost.
It would go up, I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, cool.
For my notes on that, it was that it wasn't coded correctly, and now I wish they were here so we could have asked them more detail on that.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
She was saying that the auditor
not
said it
coded
was a
correctly.
coding issue with merit, so they did call out the charter school as one of the issues in the audit, which is why I think it's worth adding it to the scope. Also just kind of with the issues in the town. They did say it was coding issues, but why did those coding
Why?
issues come
Yeah.
up? Does that mean that things are still incorrect? Like, you know, just to
What's
make
the
sure it's
issue?
all
Yeah.
free and clear.
Well, it sounds like there's enough interest here that we should go ahead and attempt to get a couple more estimates so we have a good idea as to how competitive they are and do a real comparison between them and go from there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, very good.
Do we need to vote on that to make sure it
No.
happens?
No action.
No action.
Well, I know, but last time we had the consensus and we said we were gonna do something, it didn't happen. So I just wanna make sure this happens.
These additional quotes?
The action, so we've decided as a board consensus that these are the steps we'd like to do moving forward. I just wanna make sure we actually move forward with these
Are
steps.
you comfortable to take it from where we just spoke to work on getting us a couple more estimates?
Yes, and
A couple more proposals?
we'll get a couple more proposals. I'll try to have them by May. I don't know timing wise how quickly they'll be able to turn it around, but I'll do my best to have those by May.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is board information reports. Does anyone have any?
No, we did this at the beginning.
Yeah.
More information.
Here, if I could jump in, we have the ops report that's on this. I know there's a question about the electric at Merritt. What I can say is that was an issue that was experienced previously. We actually followed up with them after the meeting on the 31st. They said, yeah, that had already been resolved. So I'm not sure why it was brought up here, but
it's resolved.
My understanding is
It was on their,
it was on their sheet.
It's on their sheet.
So
So we already
the
paid for
people
that,
getting
fixed it.
shocked and is not
Is
an
done.
ongoing issue. Because Jason asked them about that afterwards. So I would just want to, my understanding is the electricity issues have been resolved there. So.
Thank you for that.
It was shocking to see it on there.
meetings.
Okay.
That's when you know we've been up here too long.
Next item is to go into executive session. And at this time, I need a motion for us to adjourn to executive session. So pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, 4B, E, and F for legal advice regarding the contract and separation of employment of superintendent and for advice to negotiator regarding terms of departure and to discuss personnel compensation and contract matters regarding acting interim superintendent. I have to read all of that, David.
You did good. So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call?
I'm sorry, before we go to roll call, do we have a lawyer present?
Yes.
He's,
Waiting in the wings?
Well,
he'll be online and we have a computer set up in the room, so he'll be joining remotely.
And then the other question before we go in, since we will be discussing possible contract things for Mr. Salt, I just want to make sure, I don't think it would be appropriate for you to be in there.
No.
I don't know if that was part of it, but.
No, I'm going to my office to work.
Okay, cool.
Good question. All right, roll call.
Sparkley?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell? Aye. Westerholt?
Aye. Motion carries. You know what, can we take a 5-minute personal break?
Oh, no. We're going to Kensel's office.
No breaks.
Just a little station, then I can work on it. If you guys need anything, I'll be there.
This is going to set me up and I have to help you.
You have.
Ibuprofen.
Yes, we do. I don't know, I think it's on the tier, someone was looking yesterday.
We're gonna take a 5-minute.
See if I can find some. Are you allergic to anything?
I am not.
Okay.
No, thank you for asking.
completely used up all of my attention tonight.
Congratulations
gone.
on your wedding.
Oh, my dad's gonna be 45 years old.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations. Are you like
I would be honored.
Okay.
You just send me a text and tell me when early mornings are the best.
Okay.
And I'm leaving for the wedding.
Yeah.
Wedding's on the 2nd. Going
Even if we have to wait, we'll make it work.
Right,
Before
yeah,
or after.
I would be honored to have coffee. Thank you for asking. Yes.
Thank you for your
I'm telling you. You can answer.
Sessions, 60 minutes, we've had them for an hour.
That's what I was kind of figuring.
I would figure probably an hour just with the number of things we're talking about.
For sure, for sure. All right, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
The highest job for you, and I don't think you believe me. I do believe. I am never disrespectful to your position, even though I disagree, and I'm never going to demean you.
We disagree on a lot.
I can agree that I like you and you're dancing with you anytime you want. You know, I did say that jokingly, please.
I know. I hope it doesn't take too long for y'all.
Aaron, you have a wonderful evening.
You too. Find out the cost of that.
Okay, but it's not in packet or anything? It wasn't in, no, cost wasn't, because that would have been part of, getting scope of work and all of that ahead of time.
Should have got rid of those cookies right away. I ate one and a half.
I think Aaron might be in his room, his land is, you guys want me to go grab him? Or maybe they're coming.
Oh, yeah, they're coming.
Yeah, okay. I'm, yeah, staying over here like this. You go over there. Nice chair.
There you go. He can see us better instead of staring at the back of our head anyway.
It's true, you can't see everybody.
Man, I was fixing some gutters in my house yesterday.
Oh.
And I was pushing the flexible corrugated plastic tubing that's gonna fit and go on the gutters. And I just.
Okay, we need it. All right, let's go. Okay, we are going back into open session. Do we have a motion?
I have two motions.
Okay, let's get the first one.
All right, first motion is for David and Keegan to take the actions discussed in meeting regarding former Superintendent Witt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Barkley?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Kimbrell?
Aye.
Ruster-Holtz?
Aye.
Second motion is for Keegan and Mick to form a subcommittee to discuss terms of engagement with Aaron Saul.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Barkley,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Kimbrell,
Aye.
Patterson, or Westerholz, sorry.
Aye. All right. Meet- Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Barkley,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Kimbrell, Westerholz.
Aye. I hope Barry knew better than to say nay.
Sleep tight.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.
With a wish. And